From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
This is our home.
The Supreme Court argument sparking a debate over the legality of DACA. We get reactions live from Washington, D.C. Plus, we take you inside an Arizona laboratory studying how some of the secrets to climate change can be found in frozen soil.
Before you know it, if you don't capture that information, it's going to be lost.
And we'll meet the students working to preserve the past by collecting oral histories from veterans.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Marcela Baedo.
And I'm Jordan Elder. Thank you for joining us.
It's been more than 2 years since the Trump administration said it would end DACA, the deferred deportation program that protects immigrants who were brought to this country illegally as children.
That move was blocked by courts, and today the Supreme Court was asked to decide which side is right, as Hannah Ehrlich reports from our Washington bureau.
More than 660,000 people are currently protected by DACA, and several hundred of them rallied outside the Supreme Court today on a cold and rainy day to speak out in defense of the program they say has let them come out of the shadows. DACA recipient Eddie Chavez said he came from Phoenix and camped out so he could be here for today's arguments in the Supreme Court.
A lot of us have been here for days camping, standing up in solidarity for all of the DACA recipients. Currently right now in the Supreme Court, DACA hearings are happening. We have a lot of our community members who are actually inside right now, and we're just here to show support and not show fear. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals was created in 2012 under President Barack Obama. Besides protecting some young immigrants from deportation, it granted some rights, including the ability to get a work permit or a driver's license.
We want to have the privilege to work, the privilege to go to school. In Arizona, we don't have in-state tuition, but we can probably get it back at some point. We fought for it before, and we got it before.
But the Trump administration in 2017 said it would end the program, arguing that it was created illegally by the Obama administration. Lower courts kept DACA alive, saying the Trump administration acted improperly when it moved to end the program. Today's hearing was just another step in a long process for DACA recipients like Rodrigo Pimentel.
For so long, our futures have been so uncertain, living from court case to court case, and today the Supreme Court they're hearing oral arguments pertaining to DACA.
Inside the court, the justices seem focused on whether DACA was created legally in the first place. The possibility that the court could allow the Trump administration to end the program has people like Hernandez feeling that DACA recipients like him are unwanted.
For what reason? Well, I don't know. We can get into that. But for us, it just feels like we're not wanted no matter who we are, what we do. It's just our concept, us being here present, is what they have a problem with.
For many DACA recipients growing up in the U.S., this is the only country they have ever known. Chavez said it shouldn't be so hard for them to be accepted as the Americans he feels they are.
We are your neighbors, we are your community members, we are your friends. We contribute day to day to being American. It seems to me that we do everything we can to be Americans, but America doesn't want us to be Americans right now.
Ending DACA was one of President Donald Trump's priorities. And while the court heard arguments in the case today, a decision is not likely until sometime next spring or early summer, just as the 2020 presidential election is heating up. In Washington, Hannah Ehrlich, Cronkite News.
And while arguments continue in D.C., Arizona has a significant DACA population, with recipients hovering around the 25,000 mark in the state.
Some of them coming out today for a planned rally on ASU's Tempe campus. That is where we find Cronkite News reporter Frankie McClister, who is live and tells us what other local DACA recipients shared with him earlier today. Frankie?
Yeah, I'm here at Arizona State University's Tempe campus. You cannot see it behind me. Promise it's here, but there's a rally being put together by Documented Students for Education Equity. And this is a group here at ASU known as USEE. They say they want to show solidarity with those fighting to uphold DACA.
It means your life is in constant limbo. You don't have the ability to plan for the future because you don't know if you'll be in the country in the next 2 years.
And that's what Phoenix DACA recipient Deyanira Garcia says life has been for the past few months. The student organizer with the grassroots organization Aliento says her family is an example of what DACA can and cannot do.
Right now we're trying to figure out FAFSA, and because that's something that I didn't have access to or that I couldn't have applied for, and we're trying to figure that out because my parents aren't undocumented.
And while Garcia worries about what may happen to the DACA program, Arizona Dream Act Coalition co-founder Dulce Matus, she says dreamers shouldn't sit idly by until the Supreme Court makes a decision next year.
The one thing that I do hope is that nobody stays on the sidelines. We're going to have a decision from the Supreme Court in 2020, so let's not wait until 2020. What are we going to do?
And for his part, President Trump speaking out about DACA today via Twitter, writing, quote, "Many of the people in DACA no longer very young are from angels. Some are very tough, hardened criminals. President Obama said he had no legal right to sign order, but would anyway. If Supreme Court remedies with overturn, a deal will be made with Dems for them to stay," end quote. The president has said in the past he's not in favor of punishing children, but that the previous administration exceeded its authority by creating the DACA program. But for dreamers like Jose Patino, that decision is the reason he's been able to build a life in the United States, the place he's called home since he was about 6 years old.
For me, I would like to have security so that I can continue building my life and live what I call the American dream.
And as the Supreme Court continues to hear arguments, there's going to be more rallies such as this one here at ASU, but us here at Cronkite News, we'll keep you updated. Tomorrow's newscast, we will have what happened here at ASU's rally today. In Tempe, for Cronkite News, I'm Frankie McClister.
The House committees behind the impeachment inquiry into President Trump are set to hold their first public hearings tomorrow. Testimony from State Department officials on Wednesday and Friday will be the public's first real look at the official investigation into Trump's July 25th call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Top diplomat to Ukraine Bill Taylor and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State George Kent will testify Wednesday, while the former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine Marie Yovanovitch is set to testify Friday. Former Vice President and 2020 presidential candidate Joe Biden weighed in on House Republicans' calls for his son Hunter, a key figure in Trump's call with Zelensky, to testify.
There is zero rationale for that to happen. Nobody has suggested anything was done that was inappropriate. This is all a diversion. This is classic Trump.
House Republicans today outlining their defense against impeachment efforts. They plan to show that Trump's call with Zelensky shows, quote, no conditionality or evidence of pressure, and that the Ukrainian government had no knowledge of a conditional hold on U.S. aid, among other things.
Arizona PBS will carry live coverage of the impeachment hearings from 8 a.m. until noon tomorrow. For children's programming, please tune into the PBS Kids channel 8.4 with your antenna. Go to channel 81 on Cox or go online at azpbs.org. The federal government will again make a case against Scott Warren, an Arizona border activist accused of harboring immigrants who snuck across the U.S.-Mexico border. Warren says he was helping migrants in need as part of a mission with the No More Deaths group. But prosecutors say the men were never in distress and Warren conspired with them to avoid authorities. Warren is one of 9 members who have been charged with crimes related to their work. However, he's the only one facing felony charges. The new trial began today and is expected to last less than 2 weeks.
Senator Martha McSally spent her holiday weekend visiting fellow veterans in Phoenix alongside Arizona Governor Doug Ducey. While at the VA, McSally addressed the recent deportations of military vets. A report earlier this year by the Federal General Accounting Office concluded ICE has no idea how many veterans it deported during the past 5 years. Governor Ducey did not answer questions about whether those who served should be allowed to remain in the U.S. despite being here illegally. He did tell reporters, quote, "This immigration issue is something that's been left unsolved for some time. It's not going to be solved on Veterans Day."
Representative Greg Stanton spent his Veterans Day interviewing 99-year-old Major Fanny Griffin McClendon, one of nearly 800 women in the Army's first and only all-black female battalion. They talked about her experience managing a postal system that could reach the troops. The oral history will join the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project. Now, reading history from a book isn't quite as personal as learning from it from someone who has experienced it firsthand.
Cronkite News reporter Andrew Christensen joins us in studio. Andrew, you got to speak with an organization that lets students interview veterans. What was that like?
It really put me in the shoes of the students that are a part of the Veterans Heritage Project, because I also got to interview a veteran and see what kinds of experiences he went through and how it impacted him.
Harris Island.
Vietnam veteran Phil Yin laughs as he looks at his guideline book for the Marine Corps from boot camp, reminiscing about his time in the military during the 1960s. In his home, military treasures speak to what he learned during his service.
One of the things I think the Marine Corps taught me is discipline. And the Marine Corps has 3 words, actually: adapt, improvise, and overcome. And I use those 3 words in my professional career all the time.
Yin's experiences were captured by the Veterans Heritage Project, an organization that allows middle school, high school, and college students to interview veterans. Their work is published annually in books entitled Since You Asked. There are currently 15 volumes and 30 school partners.
And their individual stories really capture what is the cost of war. It's a lot beyond just words on a page or numbers. It's beyond that, and students learn that historical events they're nuanced.
One of the students who interviewed Yin was Jake Sonnenberg, who was so inspired by his experience with VHP in high school that he started a chapter at ASU.
It's those kinds of stories that really stick with me, as well as the lessons of leadership. And I think you get more lessons from the stories after the conflict, after their service.
Interviews conducted by students are archived at the Library of Congress. Executive Director of VHP, Michelle DeMuro, says students are improving their writing and researching skills as well as their confidence.
And you realize what they went through, what they overcame. That student then looks at their own life and realizes, my problems aren't that bad. I can work through this.
Yin says being interviewed brought up a lot of feelings he had been holding back, and that he is now understood better because he was able to share his story through VHP.
And I think all the schools, whatever town you go, should have organizations like VHP. I think it's an excellent vehicle for the students to learn about history, to learn about the different wars. Before you know it, if you don't capture that information, it's going to be lost. And what better way to capture it than have a student one-on-one with a veteran that experienced that.
VHP also has a speaker series where veterans talk to students about their war experiences, in addition to a scholarship program that has awarded more than $100,000 that allows students to pursue secondary education or to travel.
What a great program, especially for a learning opportunity for those students and those veterans. Now, if someone wants to get in contact with VHP, how do they do that?
You can go on their website on veteransheritage.org. You can also follow them on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Well, coming up next on Cronkite News at 5, we talk to the mother of a Mexican teen killed in a cross-border shooting about getting justice for her son.
And several Arizona schools join an e-cigarette class action lawsuit. The details when we come back.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia.
From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
DACA was not the only Supreme Court case being watched closely in Arizona today. The justices also heard a case about a Border Patrol agent in Texas who shot across the border and killed a Mexican teen in 2010.
A case almost identical to a 2012 shooting in Nogales. Cronkite News reporter Heather Cumberledge was at the court today.
In Jose Antonio's case, we want to see justice, which is what we've been fighting for 7 years, asking for justice.
For Araceli Rodriguez, access to justice rides on what the Supreme Court decides in a case it heard today. In that case, Hernandez versus Mesa, the justices are considering whether a Mexican family can sue a Border Patrol agent in the death of their son. Today's case did not involve Rodriguez's son, but involved an almost identical case from Texas. Court said Rodriguez, who lives in Nogales, Sonora, can sue the Border Patrol agent who was standing in Arizona when he shot across the border and hit her son, Jose Antonio, multiple times in the back in 2012. But courts in Texas said the family of Sergio Adrian Hernandez Guerca could not sue the agent who shot across the border and killed their 15-year-old son in Ciudad Juarez.
We're hopeful that we win today. We're hopeful that we're able to have justice.
In arguments today, lawyers for the government argued that the court should not extend protections of the U.S. Constitution beyond the U.S. border, and that doing so would make it harder for the Border Patrol agents to do their jobs. But Galindo said it's about justice for the families.
If we lose this case, there will be no justice for my clients. If we win, we have the opportunity to have a trial, and there 12 Americans will decide the fate of this family, of whether or not their son was killed without cause.
That is all Rodriguez is asking for, her attorney said.
And we're hopeful that they will be able to seek justice. This has been a long road representing them.
Whatever the outcome, Rodriguez said she will keep fighting for her son.
The murderer has to pay for what he did. He can't be calm. He has to know that we will continue to fight and seek justice for what he did to my son.
In Washington, Heather Cumberledge, Cronkite News.
This is not the first time the Supreme Court has heard the Hernandez case. In 2017, the justices rejected the lower court's ruling that the Border Patrol agent enjoyed immunity for the shooting while on duty. But the Texas court subsequently rejected the Hernandez's family's suit on other grounds. The city of Phoenix is looking to keep trash costs low, and that could mean ending its recycling and composting programs. According to the Public Works Department, price increases could be passed on to homeowners who want to continue to recycle. Phoenix City Council will weigh in today whether or not it wants to pursue the price hike. If not, the department will be forced to make over a $36 million service cut.
Several school districts across the state are suing the biggest name in vaping. Among them, Phoenix Union High School, Tolleson Union High, and Alhambra Elementary School District. The lawsuit claims Juul designed its products to appeal to youth and misrepresented the amount of nicotine in their devices. It goes on to say the e-cigarette maker successfully created a misleading impression that its products were healthy. Schools say the burden of addicted teens has fallen on them, with nearly 30% of 8th graders in Arizona saying they vaped at least once. Tucson Unified School District filed its own lawsuit against Juul last month.
Winter around the corner? I'll tell you in the 7-day forecast if we are below average temperature this time of year.
Cronkite Noticias is the Spanish-speaking division of Cronkite News, covering topics such as economics, education, sustainability, immigration, and border relations. Cronkite Noticias strives to serve the Spanish-speaking community in Arizona. Under the guidance of prominent Spanish-speaking professionals, students at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism develop content for our broadcast partner, Univision, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. Explore Cronkite Noticias at cronkitenoticias.azpbs.org.
Then I stumbled across the kids programs and I fell in love with author. I used to be a school teacher. Some of my classes I taught were K through 6. I liked author's approach to how you would teach a moral or how to teach a way to react to a situation. And they always had a moral to the story. So I still watch author quite religiously.
For more information about including Arizona PBS in your future plans, visit azpbs.org/giving.
The Trump administration notified the United Nations earlier this month that the U.S. is officially withdrawing from the Paris Agreement. That's an international pledge made by nearly 200 nations to cut greenhouse gas emissions.
The U.S. is the first country to leave the agreement, a process that takes a year to complete. Many countries involved in the agreement collaborate on climate research.
One example of this is a recent special report created by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Ted Scher from Northern Arizona University wrote part of this report, and I spoke with him recently about his research.
An IPCC special report released in September zeroed in on the ocean, the liquid parts and the frozen parts. Ted Scher is interested in the frozen, but it's difficult to research that from sunny Arizona.
I do a lot of my field work in Alaska. What's very unique about it is that even though there's a forest growing, if you dig into the ground, it's frozen.
He digs to find carbon, which helps scientists understand how quickly the climate is changing. And some of these changes hit close to home.
For people in Arizona, this sounds far away, but it turns out that the changes that are happening there are affecting people no matter where you live.
Some of the secrets to climate change can be found in frozen soil. And no, this isn't a burrito.
This dark brown is 40 to 50% carbon. There's all of this organic carbon locked up, and when that starts to get warmer and it thaws, it turns into these greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide and methane. Those are released back into the atmosphere, and that affects climate everywhere, including the temperatures in Phoenix.
Elaine Pegararo works in Scher's lab at NAU.
These were collected from Healy, Alaska.
She's monitoring the carbon dioxide levels in these soil samples. She puts mason jars in these coolers, attaches tubes, and after the carbon dioxide levels are calculated, all the data is sent right to her computer. And for the gas to be analyzed, everything else has to be filtered out. That's where Chris Ebert comes in.
We ultimately turn the carbon dioxide into carbon, graphite, and that's how it's analyzed for C14. This gives us a chance to make sure there isn't any atmospheric gases trapped in with the carbon dioxide. It's frozen on this side, and it's really, really hot on that side.
Another special IPCC report from 2018 finds that if global temperatures rise by more than 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit in the coming decades, species will go extinct, sea levels will continue to rise, and our food and water supply will decrease.
You know, the Earth is going to continue to change and the climate will change, but we have choices to make, and we could alter the future that we end up in.
Scientists are already working on a series of IPCC reports due out over the next 3 years. The goal is to raise questions and understanding about climate change. And Millard, it was pretty warm today, but tell us what's coming up next.
Yeah, so we're actually going to be above average temperature over the next 7 days, but before that, let's start with your Tuesday weather report. Now, as you guys are getting off work, you can see temperatures are going to be sitting about 80 degrees. Now, you might want to grab a sweater. If you're heading out for that Lakers Suns 7 p.m. tip-off, temperatures are going to be about 74, and they're going to continue to fall into nightfall, so they're going to continue to drop as the night goes on. Now, if you wake up in Valley tomorrow, you're going to see 55 out in Phoenix, and then out west, it's actually going to be 57 Lake Havasu City. Then as you move more toward east and north, temperatures are going to be lower, hence the blue, 34 in Show Low, 24 in Window Rock. But how about the rest of your Wednesday? As you can see, when you wake up, 59 degrees, temperatures are going to continue to climb till 74 around noon before they peak at 79 around 4 p.m. But how about your next 3 days? As you can see, partly cloudy on Thursday, 83 degrees, more cloud coverage on Friday, 84. But what about your weekend? Saturday is going to be a replica of Friday, 84 and cloudy, sunny Sunday, 84. Monday clear, 82, and we're going to be above average temperature, 77 degrees average. We're going to be above that the next 7 days. And that's it. Me, Miller Thomas, in the Cronkite News Weather Center.
Up next, we'll tell you what Arizona cities ranked in the top 10 places to celebrate Thanksgiving.
And can you guess what traditional Thanksgiving dish 19% of Americans don't like? We're serving up the answer after the break.
Stay in the know on the go. At Cronkite News, we work hard to report the facts and keep you updated, whether we're on set or on the scene.
Taking it from the studio to the field. So I'm here in South Phoenix.
In Phoenix, we're just a click away. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or find us online at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Join us each week on Catalyst, the show that explores new advancements, technologies, and innovations at Arizona State University that are shaping the future for tomorrow and beyond. Catalyst, Wednesdays at 9, right here on Arizona PBS.
If you haven't booked your ticket home for the Thanksgiving holiday, you might not have to look too far. According to a new Wallet Hub survey, Arizona is home to 2 of the top cities to give thanks in this year. The survey from finance website Wallet Hub reported Scottsdale was ranked the 2nd best city in the U.S. for the upcoming holiday. The town of Gilbert ranked 6th on the list, and rounding out the top 15, Chandler and Mesa ranked 11th and 13th. The survey ranks cities based on affordability, safety, weather, celebrations, and traditions.
And speaking of traditions, there are so many traditional Thanksgiving dishes.
Yeah.
We see them on our tables every single year, like cranberry sauce, sweet potatoes, and pumpkin pie.
But a new online Harris poll finds your classic Turkey Day dinner may be the least favorite dish, which is exactly how I feel.
According to the poll, 68% of adults surveyed said they secretly dislike the Thanksgiving entrees, but they eat them for the sake of tradition.
22% say they eat sweet potatoes even though they don't like them. And as far with cranberry sauce, nearly half of Americans surveyed called it, quote, disgusting. And I agree with them.
I do too. I don't like the texture of cranberry sauce.
What about you?
See, I find turkey a little bit too dry for my liking.
I have to drown it in gravy. There's no way. That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
And for top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Arizona Horizon with Ted Simons is next. Have a great evening.